Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers and we are kind of redesigning our whole concept of the space station. So as you saw in some of the previous videos, the space station, while kind of neat, was really wreaking havoc with the game. So it was really just too big. So what I wanted to do is try and develop a much smaller version, and I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, but what I thought was we would have this glass junction as the centerpiece, as intended. We would stack this guy on top just because I like towers, and this guy would ultimately be on the bottom of the BRS scaffold. So the idea here is that this would be our centerpiece, and then we would come out using tunnels, possibly the hangar bay we created, and ultimately the landing pads. So what I was thinking was we'd have 4 landing pads, so we'd have plenty of available space, which would actually sit off of the junction, the glass junction. So it would basically be the glass junction, passageway out to the landing pads. We would basically have 4 landing pads around, and then come off the bottom of the junction with the BRF scaffold, which is really just it's the scaffold assembly, 25 blocks long, that has the nanobot build and repair systems embedded in it. There's about 40, I think there's 48 of them in there. It might be 42, but either way, the build and repair system, the nanobot build and repair system there. So we would remove an awful lot of stuff from this, just because it was getting so completely laggy that it wasn't, I don't think it would actually be playable on, I know this might sound a little arrogant, a lesser machine. So my machine is fairly high end, so I'm guessing that a lot of players would actually have a lot of issues playing the game. So if I was getting laggy with my machine, I think that that particular station, the Station Series 2, this one here, would end up being just unplayable. I really think. So I definitely don't want to create a game that's unplayable. That just doesn't make any sense. Um, so the other side of the equation is, so let's go ahead and start pasting stuff in the world here. Um, and I don't have a, any kind of center of reference. So let me just go ahead and paste, and then we'll use that as a center. Upper tower, which is really kind of the same thing, but not. And we still have some things pasted on here. So the idea here is, we are, so the spire, which effectively takes it's the same concept as this top without the observation center on the top, and it also breaks out the 3 different conveyor systems just boom out to the side. So this one does not do that. It presumes that we're dealing with that in some other way. So the triple system is not present in the tower itself, but I do like the tower. Now the elevators are in there, so that's still one of those required mod things. So let's go ahead and pull out the junction here. And we'll go ahead and roll that over and just get it aligned up, because I really think I'm going to end up using that. So the idea, I think, will be to paste this on the top here. I do need to do a couple things, so maybe I will figure out how to kind of terminate these other items. Either that, or we modify this really to accommodate this, which I may do. So there may be some building going on here. As far as what we're doing. Oh, okay. We'll go ahead and this is the BRS scaffold here. I know it goes this way by virtue of which way the ports here are settled. All right. The only other thing that my intentions include are these guys, and I think they're now facing the correct direction. But what I do need to do is move these out to the side, so we'll paste those like that. And the last thing we have would be the tunnels, which ultimately are going to connect everything in. And I've got to get that facing the right way. So I think this is it. Now, obviously, we have some miscellaneous stuffs here from the building process, and I left those on purposefully when I did the saves, just to give. So this one here actually was a storage. So as I was grinding things down, so you can see there's a lot of junk in here, purposefully so. Well, not a lot of junk, but definitely some junk in it. Purposefully so. All right. So the idea here, I think, would be, and I may actually not do tunnels here. I kind of like the idea of coming straight out and into the landing pads, keeping this very, very compact. So we really end up just having the BRS module out the bottom, and I still like the tower on the top, which is kind of, you know, the main central thing for the top of the station here, and I really kind of want to keep that. And then I think the spire ends up out on the bottom, just to not only be symmetrical with this portion, but I need something that kind of finalizes everything. Now, the downside to this concept is, how do I add anything else? So there's not mass storage here, which I'm absolutely going to need. And then there's the concept of, you know, this is my world that I'm playing with. So do I design this around a vanilla concept, or do I go ahead and do some stuff specifically with Kenti blocks? And I'm kind of toying with either one. The advantage to Kenti blocks is they take up far less space because they're totally overpowered. So the question is playability for me versus playability for somebody else. Would I ever upload this world and have it available on the workshop? And if my mod and my blocks are involved, then the answer to that is kind of no, because it is the blocks are in many cases ridiculously overpowered. So there is that. So the question is tunnels versus just bolting the landing pads right straight up. Do I maybe create a smaller tunnel? And I like the tunnels, but I'm thinking practical application here. Oops, this is upside down. So forgive me for that. Let me paste that back into the world and flip that over. Which of course changes everything because now I have all of this pasted in backwards. No, I guess it's not. So I'm leaning towards the landing pads being right out here. And then the only thing that leaves is how do I connect on really ancillary storage, sorting, all that sort of thing. And the only thing I've been able to come up with is to say, let's put landing pads on 3 sides and basically create an ancillary storage, sorting, assemblers, everything off the one side. And I don't really have a problem with that. And I may use Kenti blocks just for sake of compactness, because obviously I can build something using Kenti blocks that's far smaller than non-Kenti blocks. And the other advantage to Kenti blocks is they're so infinitely huge that I think again, for my own purposes, my intentions for this particular series, it would make life a little easier, and it would make for a much more compact space station. So, having said that, the interfaces here, which are going to be unique, are trying to figure out how to go from the triple conveyor system into a single conveyor system up here. This one here, ultimately, we're going to pull off, and that's going to end up down here. So the question is, do we do a junction down here as part of everything? And maybe I'll go ahead and put that down there. So I don't really need a junction down here. It would be kind of a nice thing, although it would give me a place to put more landing pads. Whether that is a good idea or a bad idea, I don't know. So, do we need more than 4 landing pads? No, probably not. So maybe if we consider what the needs are here, might be okay to just this okay, so I think I have this rotated the correct direction, which is really to say correct relative to this guy. And if that's the case, then I should be able to paste it on there. Now, the one change I made on this particular unit in the space station version was actually to put a couple oxygen tanks into this. This one has oxygen tanks in the middle. So there's one here, there's actually one on the other side. And then the intentions for these ports are actually weapons. So I didn't put the weapons on there because if I ever use mods or something like that, then I was thinking, okay, I would potentially need to have the capability of putting whatever on. So rather than deleting something and adding something else, just leave it blank and then I can add whatever I want. Now, having said that, the argument is, okay, well, you're an idiot because you already have the vanilla weapons installed on both the Spire and the tower. Yeah, true. So probably um, we end up with. No, that one already left. Okay, I did put a beacon on there. I wasn't sure. These two antennas, while active, which is to say they are here, so they are built, but they are turned off. So they are just more for aesthetic value than anything else. Um, I think the laser antennas were renamed, even though I had them set for something else. So normally I would have 4 antennas just for fun, but because of this being here, I did not do that. So that gives a methodology of getting that in. What I may actually do is change these two, so the fuel ice and the pull-in connector, to be extended. So basically we have these here that are extended down here, but this is the main supply system. So even though they're black, they are tied on to that dark green method, that dark green conveyor system. The other thing that's kind of interesting down here and figuring out what I want to do is how do we put the the base in, and maybe what I should have done is consider putting a in fact, let's go ahead and look at that. And what I know I did not do, and this is going to get really laggy here for a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this into the world, which may or may not work. And I'm actually going to chop off the bottom. Okay, it's upside down. So one of the things I did, so here's the moment of truth, whether this actually pastes in or not. Oh, it did. All right. Of course, I got really, really laggy. So the goal here is I really did this assembly down here kind of turned into what it was by virtue of the elevators actually have a limitation of how far down they can go. So I built on these two pieces, these 2 landing pads, by virtue of I was at the bottom, but I was at the limit, so I wasn't all the way at the bottom, and I actually kind of like this. So what I was thinking I might do is go ahead and chop off the bottom section here by way of this, and then get rid of. Alright, so that should separate everything out. Yeah. So this should be the entire bottom section here. So we will go ahead and do a Control X, and hopefully, if all goes well, it will just delete the station and not do anything disastrous. Not sure why this piece ended up still here. Alright, so maybe we'll go ahead and rename this and save this as a part, because I actually find it really useful. And I suppose I could have, considered. So this is station lower BRS landing. So we're going to call this station lower BRS scaffold landing. Which hopefully that will make a certain amount of sense. So the idea is that this is the entire lower section, including the lower elevator sections, with the elevator already installed. So landing pad A and B here, which are already set up, which is convenient. So we may actually, in this case, be able to take the place of this guy. It's already got the landing pads built in. There's part of me that kind of wants to say landing pads built right onto this portion of the spire would be kind of neat. So if we do the comparative, having a bit of extra armament down below is actually not a bad idea. So this one has these 4 weapons down below the landing pads, which I think is not a bad idea. So even though this came about by function of I ran out of room, which is to say I had to be less than 100 blocks, or rather exactly 100 blocks, including the top and the bottom, for this to work, then that became a function of that 100 limit. On the flip side of that, this doesn't look half bad, and it provides a few extra armaments underneath, so I think we can work with this. So, having said that, we're going to go ahead and delete this piece and bring this piece over. So X, and we'll come over here. So we'll use that to align everything. I'm going to spin. I guess technically I could attach. Actually, I'm not going to attach because I'm lining up the colors without lining up the shafts. And I think the shafts are fine. Oh, error multi-core reference not set. Alright, that may or may not be a problem. If we come down here, this is elevator 1. And what I want to make sure is this is in fact airlock 1, shaft 1, which it is. So technically I could go ahead and attach these in and not have an issue, and I'm hoping that's the case, which will technically line up everything. So this block should attach onto that block, and I'm hoping it will let me do that. So X and V, it looks like I am good so far. One more over. Okay, that's all lined up. I'm going to go ahead and commit. Alright. So the bad news, if there's any to be had here, looks like I'm going to have to fix the elevators, but with the shafts already in, then that may not be a problem. So I'm hoping that's the case. Alright, what we have to do here is figure out what am I going to do in terms of this here. So obviously I can't attach this directly on because I need to effectively terminate these 2 things. But ultimately, not only terminate, but I need to carry on my elevators through. The other side of this is this airlock door here may or may not have an exit path. So if I were to paste this directly on the top, I would cover that particular thing. So this is a bit larger than this piece. So this is an entire block set larger. The good news is if I just took the top off and set this thing directly down on top, then I would actually probably be much improved. So the question is how to go about doing that, and I think with this extra piece, gone, then
No
it
energy.
may actually. So this is airlock 3, which is really, so this side should be airlock 1. Just check that to be sure. Yes. Now, one of the things that I took off here were the LCD panels. So what I could actually do is add these LCD panels back in and actually call these airlock 1 which could let me in fact go to the top, because I may already have a reference. No, the answer is no, I don't. All right, so I think we're going to alter the junction by way of, it doesn't matter what block I use here. I'm just going to delete this top. And the deletion of this top is going to change some fundamental things inside here. Ultimately, the blue and so the pull-in and the pull-in and the fuel ice. Sorry, I'm totally brain stuttering here. Don't need to come up to the top anymore. This is going to be a very specialized build here, so I can actually delete all of these. So let me just to right, this is going to look really silly, so bear with me here. And I'm gonna put this on here very specifically. Actually, let me go ahead and use my obnoxious build color just so I know these are temporary. So, oops. Okay, so I can't do that because the BRS system is turned on. So we'll go ahead and do that. And what I'm doing here is actually giving a mount point for the LCD display. I do not want to lose that display because I've already got it set up. So I'm going to go through sideways into this section and actually delete the elevator. We're going to delete and delete. So what that basically just did was delete the elevator. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side because the problem right now is the referencing. So you see those errors went off the screen. So this is the bottom floor down here, and then the way you build these elevators is you build the bottom floor and then you stick the elevator directly on top. And we'll rebuild all of that in a moment, but I just wanted to get the red warnings off the screen. So this all attached here, coming straight through, moving everything in the directions that it is supposed to. Let me just verify that those are indeed coming through as intended. I think I attached them on in the correct direction. Yes, I did. Alright, so once again we come up, we're going to go through the top here, and we're actually going to, I don't think this is attached to anything anymore, so let me go ahead and, no, it is not attached. So we want to delete this. I can, I'm going to leave that for a moment, and then we'll delete this down this side as well. So the idea is this does not need to come up over here, because so the idea was that this would continue on up and then connect into the other side, and for whatever reason this is not going anywhere. Oh, which is true. So what I wanted to make sure was that these ones going out the sides are actually still interconnected as expected, and the only thing I am affecting is the top going out to what was supposed to go out to this upper section. So the question is, do I still need this conveyor here? And the only way I can really see is, let's go ahead and delete those two, and then look underneath what is happening here. And that looks like I could change that one out with an elbow and not have any trouble. So that is connected there, which is good. So let's go ahead and go over here. We'll select our color appropriate to this thing. We will select number 4. We want an elbow, and here we go. So I think we can accomplish the very same thing by doing that. Alright, then we'll come over and do the same investigative thing over here. Find out what we want to do. That one is coming out this way, so I will not be able to change that particular piece out, but it does look like I can delete that one and that one with no consequence at all. Alright, so the good news is I could actually change things just a little bit and change my the way the scaffold, the catwalks go through here. So I could actually narrow down the catwalks. So this is a door here, an actual landing for the elevator. And I may do more here. I mean, this is a centralized location. I've just gutted the middle of this, so technically I could bring in the sorting system, the distribution system, the gaseous production. I could do everything right in here, or I could attempt to do so. So this could in fact be a more centralized thing that would ultimately the only challenge here is this doesn't have a floor, and it really kind of needs a floor. So what I'm thinking I will do is make a floor. And we're going to go with tiger orange here. I'm going to add is actually the number 1 side. We're going to put down blocks, which I'll change out these corner blocks, but I think we're going to go ahead and do this. Then these corner blocks are actually going to get swapped out with go the other way. So that one, rotate again.
No energy.
Now, what this has effectively done, I think, is add in even though I lose my slope slightly, I did have a very definitive requirement for a floor. So there's part of me that wanted to kind of insert this down below, but I think the lines are still going to work. So if it doesn't, then well, either way. Oops. Okay. So I did oops. Namely, these two. And what I have to do here, pretty straightforward. Obviously, not a whole lot of rocket science here. I do a floor. My thoughts here are: do I go ahead and add in another air vent? And I don't think I will. So we need the elevator. So I can actually do that with one because they've included everything. So the elevator bottom, I don't need that middle top. And this is a filler, which is in fact what I need here. So I put a filler here and a filler here, which then continues that shaft up on through. So this is actually, I believe, the one side. So this stuff is all on the number 3 side. And then it's just a matter of understanding where the 1 side is versus the 3 side. So this is the 3 side here. But with this open, so the question is there a better way to do this? Could I have potentially put a floor in without a floor? So, having asked that question, let's go ahead and do. All right, let's move a copy of that over there. I'm going to use a battery just for convenience sake. We're going to delete this flooring. And really what I have is a 3x3. So if I do a floor within the context of this thing, then I've really accomplished the same thing. So having said that, let me go ahead and do a number 3, get myself on that, make sure I am Tiger Orange here. 4, and I need to figure out which side is what. I want to rotate that around. That's the 3 side. So this is going to be on, this is the one side, which is, that's how I want that. And then we actually put down blocks and if I really wanted to make this look a bit nicer, then I could actually do this.
No energy.
Which, you know, kind of chop the corners and make it look a little different. So this effectively adds the floor in, which means I should be able to connect everything in. So this is my number one side, which should be this here. Alright, so the real challenge here is going to be figuring out how to get this thing to meld in perfectly. So we're going to do Shift F5 again. We're going to do an X and then a Control V. I need to rotate this. So this is my one side versus my three side. I want to move over and then start going directly down to see if I can hook this thing in. Alright, we are green. We appear to be lined up as intended. Commit. Huh. Well, interestingly enough, it looks like that worked. Now, the one failure here is that there's no direct access other than the elevators to get from there to here. So let's go ahead and figure out how do we get down from here. So we can either go through here, or we could actually have another floor here. And what I'm, of course, we cannot do that on this side. So if I were to do that, I would be able to have a landing platform here on the number one side. But I've got a battery over here on this side, which means I either take the battery out that's what we're going to do. Because I've already got the hole here, I might as well put in a landing for it. So this is on number 8. 9. We did a filler, we have a top, we have a middle. And then I just have to figure out exactly how these work. Alright, so here is a middle, and we're going to rotate this around and be middle. Now, if everything is still as it was, which I think we are, let's go ahead and look out the back here. We should see. So this is the number 3 side. So I should be able to go in here. The first thing we need to do, let's turn off hidden. We're going to change this to a me, which should seize ownership of those 2 pieces. Elevators, and I should have, yeah, all the elevator stuff. All the LCD panels here are, those should be the 4 on the outside, which will be deleters eventually. So what I want to do here is this will identify what this is. I'm going to scroll down and look and see how I've done these. So this is, in this case, elevator 3, tower bottom, which will make this
No energy.
Elevator 1, tower bottom. So the idea, the junction here, and I no longer need to call this junction 1 because it's a junction. It's the only junction. So then the observation deck, which is at the very top, and then the tower bottom. So we have the bottom, at least I think we have the bottom. Maybe we don't. Let's see what we did. Build and repair system. Did I keep it all the same name? Okay, so we have these 2 here, which I don't know if we have an elevator systems elevator. Okay, so those should be attached into the, yes they are. So ultimately all of these are going to end up in that group. So as long as I have that group, let's go ahead and for convenience turn that on, make sure these are all in here. Yes they are. And I should have, I hope, a systems laser antennas, because those 2 are turned off as well. Laser antennas, there we are. So let's go ahead and add those into the laser antennas. We're going to turn those off on the toolbar, and systems laser antennas, turn them off on the terminal. So those should have completely vanished. All right. Medical room, I'm not sure where that one is. I think that's actually the one that's attached outside, so we're going to leave that exactly as is because it will eventually be dismantled. Alright, so, okay, just to verify, so this is tower bottom, elevator 3. This should be tower bottom, elevator 1, which it is, which now allows us to go from top to bottom. Now the only other thing that we may want to do is how do we go from bottom in? So do I want a kind of an intersection here? So let's go ahead just for fun and delete this particular thing. Yep, here we go. Alright, so we could add a door here. This is a sliding door, tower, entry 1, and that will ultimately belong to this doors sliding group, tower entry 1. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put another one of those right here. Unnecessary and redundant. But I want to provide all the access getting in here. So just to look at what we named this. So this will be tower entry 2. Or really, if I'm doing convention, we could actually do 1 tac 2 and 3 tac 4. Now, what does 1 tac 2 and 3 tac 4 actually mean? Well, these are on the corners, and the corners are on the 1 and 2 side and the corner of the 3 and 4 side. So ultimately, that may be a more appropriate reference. So let's go ahead and change this once again to me, and go back in here, and we're going to undo that just so we're not getting totally lost. We're going to highlight those two. We're going to go up here to our doors sliding, control left click, save, which will add those two doors into the door group. And then we'll do a toolbar config off and a terminal off. Then we'll go back to our doors sliding and closed, which will close all of these doors. So now we have direct access as well as elevator access up to those particular points. Now, these are not truly airlock doors, as you are well aware. So I could technically put them in there, but I don't see that there's really any reason. I really would kind of like to put in some extra stuff. So what I'm going to do is modify just a little bit. So this is my inverted corner. I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to put a corner here. We're going to change this to a block. Change this to a slope, slope, slope. Corner. Get it facing the right way. And then the inverted corner here. Get it twisted around the right way. Which I think will look a little better, plus it will provide some kind of structural looking around that particular thing. Alright, so we'll spin this. This becomes this. This becomes this. Do a slope, reverse that around, slope, slope, slope. This is a corner, and then an inverted slope right there. So I think this will look a little bit better. Now we could continue on this whole idea right out to the outside and come up right against the windows, but I kind of like this gap all the way around. The only other thing I could potentially do is put plates in here, but if we're taking damage against the doors, then I don't think plates are really going to make any difference at all. Alright, so this is kind of where we're at here. Now, what do I want to do in the center? I think I will go ahead and okay, I'm looking at my time. I'm a hair under an hour, so I think for likely the first time in history, we're going to break it here. And what I'm going to do when we come back is actually start on the sorting, pull-in, distribution system, which ultimately I think will be right here in the center. I don't see any reason not to do that. The only differential there is we have it will all be Kenti blocks. So that's the downside, is I'll be using Kenti blocks to do everything. So this will not be really a publishable station, but that will probably be okay in terms of this particular station and my use. So I don't think that's going to be really much of a problem. So with that having been said, this is Kenti Tiger signing off. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.